Okay, my name is Jennifer Wells, and I am the Vice President of the Points Zimbro Education Center, and I am here with Ashley Henderson today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your professional background. What led you to do the work you're doing in the world today?
Well, currently I serve as a board certified behavior analyst. I'm a contract worker, so I contract with various public school systems to help provide training to their teachers, design intervention, things of that nature. And then I also contract with a company that allows me to work under the Michelle P. waiver and see clients one-on-one for their behavior supports. All of this came from I was previously a special education teacher for 8 years.
Mhm.
And then I decided to leave the classroom to pursue my dream of becoming a behavior analyst, which led me to where I am at now. And I'm also in the process of starting a nonprofit for education that will specifically address those with autism and then other extraordinary abilities.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the nonprofit?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in the state of Virginia as an educator, there was a school there that served under the private day school sector of least restrictive environment under IDEA. So special education law requires that if a school district cannot meet the needs of a specific student, then they legally have to find the place that will. And so there was an amazing school there that served some of the students that I had in my classroom had gone there and then come back to me.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where it all started, where it ignited. When I moved to Kentucky, I was an educator in the classroom for 4 years there, 4 years here.
Mhm.
I saw where within Northern Kentucky, that private day setting really isn't available
Mhm.
to a lot of students, or to a lot of districts, essentially. I work in some of those southern rural counties, Grant
Mhm.
County, Owen County, and they really don't have access to a private day setting. So I went into this with the goal of being able to provide that for them, to be an ally to the public school system to help address the needs of those students that they are unable to appropriately address.
Okay.
And through that process, we're also working to try to come up with a way for parents to place their students within that setting as well.
Okay. It's reminding me a little bit of, I think, what happens on the Ohio side, although I don't want to speak to this a lot, but I feel like there are more options through other waivers too on the Ohio side for parents when it comes to education. Does that sound accurate to you? Not positive.
Yes, it does sound accurate. And state to state, it varies. In the
Mhm.
state of Kentucky, the district itself is responsible for the financial piece
Okay.
of the child going if they determine that that's the least restrictive environment for them.
Mhm.
Various states, like you're talking about, Ohio has some waiver supports when it comes to that. I
Mhm.
know in the state of Virginia, they have some funding called CSA funding,
Okay.
um, that will match 50-50, basically what the public school system will provide.
Okay.
Um, Unfortunately, don't have that in the state of Kentucky,
Mhm.
but there's definitely a need. Me being in the public school system, I see where the need is. I talk to special ed directors, and
Mhm.
they definitely express, yes, we would love to have a private day setting available to us.
Okay. All right. So how far along are you with your work in this nonprofit?
Okay, so we have a board. We've assembled a board of people who are, you know, working towards the same mission. Everybody on my board has a very unique perspective and experience with children with special needs, with adults with special needs, with education, just various backgrounds. We have an attorney, an accountant. We have a mom of a child with special needs. We actually have an adult who has, we call them extraordinary abilities.
Mhm.
We have an adult that has extraordinary abilities that just joined our board to help us with our decision-making process.
All right.
So we have a board assembled. We've submitted for us to have that nonprofit status, and we're waiting
Mhm.
for them to come back. And essentially, we're kind of in a holding pattern with that. We've been seeking out funding and location, things of that nature.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we are in the process.
That's exciting.
Yes, very. Oh my gosh. It's every time I get to work on nonprofit stuff, it's not work to me. It's just so exciting to know how much of an impact we have that we're able to make, on this
Yeah.
population.
And is your goal to serve people in those rural counties, or are you planning to serve all of Northern Kentucky?
My goal is to find a location to where both those rural counties and Northern Kentucky counties can be, can have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Ideally, somewhere within, that Walton area would be
Yeah.
great.
Mm-hmm.
Because then we can get those kids from the rural counties and they're not going to have a huge, long commute to get to where we are.
Yeah.
And then also we could be accessible to some of those northern Boone, Kenton, those counties as well.
Sure. Good. Well, good. We need all of the help we can get in this field. So I'm so glad you're doing that.
We're very excited.
Good. What has working with people with learning or physical differences taught you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I probably could give you a laundry list of things. I
Mhm.
feel like people who have those extraordinary abilities, they teach you to find joy in the littlest things in life. They teach you to appreciate the littlest things in life, and they show you that their differences really are like their superpowers, their strengths. And they look at the world in a different way than we do. So it's just, when you go to serve an individual with some sort of different ability, they bring so much to the table that we don't, that they have this appreciation of the littlest things in life. And I feel like that they teach you how to communicate. We spend a lot of our time trying to teach our extraordinary ability people to communicate the way in which we communicate,
Mhm.
but yet they have a whole nother way of communication, and it's just amazing. You go to serve this population and then they fill your heart tenfold.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I hear that a lot. And I know that one of my favorite things about working in this field is I work with a lot of people on the autism spectrum, and everyone is unique. Everyone is their own person. But it definitely has taught me I love seeing the world in a different perspective, and it challenges me to think about, changing the way that I communicate to meet somebody where they are, because I don't really think it's fair to ask people to only communicate in one way, right? So with a neurotypical brain, I really enjoy learning about seeing the world differently and communicating differently. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I hear you on that. You've been doing this for quite a while now. What are some of the biggest worries or concerns that you have for the people that you support?
um, Adulthood. Mm,
Mm-hmm.
you know when you have kids, they're still school age, that we keep them within the school system most of the time until they're 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're a part of appropriate programming, if they have waiver services, or if they have, somebody who helps them get into voc rehab, or, if they have access to those services, then that transition into adulthood is a little less scary.
Right.
Um, but we go from all day, every day, throughout the week being in an education setting
Mm-hmm.
to, okay, what are we supposed to do next? And I think my biggest fear is that we have a large portion of this population who almost sits idle after that education piece is over. And it's such a waste of such a valuable brain and resource, like I just, I don't know. And with COVID-19, I feel like that's been intensified.
Yeah.
A lot of our day programs haven't been able to operate. And I was talking last night at our outreach to people, and I said, our adults with disabilities have suffered greatly
Mm-hmm.
as a result of COVID-19. It's just isolated them even more so
Mm-hmm.
than they were already. So I think my greatest concern is those individuals who don't get into the appropriate or right programming to
Mm-hmm.
ensure that they continue on being productive and being challenged and being utilized
Mm-hmm.
as adults, once they kind of age out of the school programming.
Right. I think that's a concern that a lot of families have, that parents have. I've heard the same.
And I think I see that. I work one-on-one with a majority of the adult population,
Mhm.
and when it's time for that transition from that last year of high school into adulthood as a parent, it is scary. I see it. What are we going to do? Where are they going to go? Do they need supported employment? Do they need, workplace or, workshop type employment.
Mhm.
And I think that's a very scary transition for parents.
I think so too. And I feel, I know that schools have tried, and specialists have tried different ways to get that information to families and help them understand what's available after high school. But it's overwhelming to me to take all of the names of the nonprofits and the state offices and the waivers. And so I'm always trying to figure out how can we get this information to families and manageable pieces, and also help them to feel like they're not alone in making this new transition to the world of work or just contributing to society in some way.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of that needs to start almost at that elementary level,
Mhm.
starting there and talking about some of these, as a former elementary school teacher, I
Mhm.
was never aware of waiver services for
Mhm.
my population. That wasn't something I was knowledgeable in. Had I been, then at every ARC, I would have presented that information to these parents and said, hey, here's step one. Let's get step one done. And then our next ARC, let's talk about step two, so that they could gradually get into that world and that thinking of, beyond the school
Yeah.
setting.
And the waivers, because there are wait lists for the Michelle P. and the SEL waiver, and they're quite long. I think to your point, the earlier families can get signed up and get on the waiver, the better.
Absolutely.
What would you say is a missing piece, if anything, for support for for parents and clients?
For parents and clients, I would say for parents, like we talked about, the knowledge of the resources that are out there and that are
Mhm.
available. Um, I feel like a majority of our parents want to advocate for their child, but they don't always know how or
Mhm.
where to find the resources, or, even within the education setting, we hand over these rights to parents.
Mhm.
Here's your educational rights as having a student that needs special education services. But the way that those are worded in the legal terms, and that doesn't really always make sense to a
Mhm.
parent. So I think that them knowing like what legally they're obligated, the school districts are obligated to do for these kids, I think
Mhm.
goes by the wayside sometimes.
Yeah.
So, and of course, um, just knowledge of available resources
Mhm. What tips do you have for parents?
for parents. First of all, enjoy your child. Like, God has given your child an amazing gift of some kind through their, people like to say disability. I like to see
Mhm.
different abilities. But God has given a gift to your child to share with you and to share with the world. Like, embrace that and, love that, because, you're not going to get those same gifts from a neurotypical child.
Mhm.
So I think that's very big. And, try to see the world from their point of view. Like you said,
Mhm.
it really can benefit us to see.
Mhm.
That's exactly why we brought somebody onto our board for our nonprofit that has an extraordinary ability, because he's going to see the world in a different way than we are.
Mhm.
He's going to make decisions differently than what we would typically do. And I
Mhm.
think that's valuable. So I think that would be my biggest tip to parents. And I also feel like, surround yourself with people and professionals that
Mhm.
can help you. I sat in a meeting just the other day, and, with a man who's very successful in business. And the one thing he told me is hire your weaknesses. Like,
Mhm.
and, I've had another behavior analyst who I admire in all of her work she's done. And she says the same thing, for me, you have a knowledge of behavior analysis, you know it inside and out. You have a knowledge of education. That's your world. Find
Mhm.
the people to surround you, that can do the other pieces, because that's their strength. You
Mhm.
don't need to take on what other people have strengths in. And the same thing, as a parent, your child better than anybody.
Mhm.
Um, but you're not always going to have the answers yourself. So, network, find that the other groups of parents, other groups of professionals that can give you the knowledge that you need to help your child succeed.
I think that is such great advice, and it came up recently. It's come up a couple of times in other interviews we have done, and it seems like For families who have places like the Down Syndrome Society, for example, there is a really strong, seems to be a really strong community for that specific diagnosis. But there are other families where the diagnosis isn't just one thing,
Yes.
or we haven't created some kind of I don't know, collection of family members and professionals around one specific kind of diagnosis. So we know we hear about autism a lot, and we hear about the Down Syndrome Society a lot, but I think some families are a bit left out
Mhm.
when it comes to finding each other and finding support.
Yes.
So we probably need to do something to help with that too, as professionals. One of my questions was around resources or paths that you would encourage families to explore. Um, are there any, though, that come to mind that you haven't talked about that you have found to be really helpful?
I think most of them we've discussed: waiver services,
Right.
voc rehab. When we talk about possibly putting, allowing an adult to do a sheltered workshop experience, I truly feel that parents should go and visit various places to
Mhm.
determine where their child would best fit with the type of work that's being done, um, you know, uh, that kind of thing, and utilize those resources. If you already have services, if you have a behavior analyst or an occupational therapist or any of those, get their input.
Mhm.
As professionals, especially as a behavior analyst, we are in and out of sheltered workshops all the time, working with clients. So utilize, like I said before, utilize those professionals around you and say, hey, in your opinion, where
Mhm.
would be a fit for my child? Do you feel like would be a good fit for them? And, a lot of us professionals can speak to, the type of work or the type of environment to determine the best, because behavior analysis, we focus on how do we change or manipulate the environment to help make somebody successful. So I feel
Mhm.
like success is very contingent on the environment in which this population goes to work or goes to school, or whatever that's going to look like for them.
Yeah. Okay. What would you like people who aren't as familiar with disabilities or different abilities to know?
This population of people, they're more like you than they are unlike you.
Mhm.
Um, and you know where I got that from? I have a client who goes and presents on Down syndrome awareness every year, and I attended um, one of his presentations. He and his dad do it together, and they go to the elementary schools and they talk about Down syndrome and what it
Mhm.
is and how that manifests and what that looks like, so that kids can see and understand that.
Mhm.
And the one thing they talk about is, he's more like you than he is unlike you.
Mhm.
He loves Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. He loves to go to Reds baseball games. I think that for those outside of this world of serving people with extraordinary abilities,
Mhm.
we see that people want to shy away, or that makes them nervous or uncomfortable. And it's, this population, they're just like we are, except for, like I said before, they have something that has given them, in my view, some sort of superpower that makes them see the world a little bit differently, or makes them experience the world a little bit differently. And
Mhm.
not only are they just like you, but you could learn a ton from them,
Yeah.
in terms of how to interpret the world.
Mhm. What is your greatest hope for the people that you support?
Oh my gosh, to see them thriving. And
Mhm.
I think that looks different for every individual.
Mhm.
But to see them using their strengths to get out there and do things and make an impact.
Mhm.
Essentially, I talked about, one of my fears is a lot of our adult population will sit idle,
Mhm.
um, sit at home, and they'll be in front of a screen for a lot of their day. There's not a lot of human interaction. Like I said, these people have some sort of strength and superpower, and what I want more than anything is for that to shine,
Mhm.
and for them to utilize that and to just thrive in
Mhm.
whatever environment they may be in.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I love, you know, that we can put this out there for people to better understand. I mean, what a way to advocate for this awesome population.
Yes, for sure. All right. Well, take care and I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.